Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be recapping our favorite moments from Gardens of the Moon, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen.
This series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it's most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Know that Kamraun and I know that this series is the best fantasy story ever written, and we're approaching this from a purely fanboy point of view, and there will be no literary critique, at least not about the series. Just pure love, baby. Just especially this episode in particular.
Yes. Today, we will be discussing everything that took place in Gardens of the Moon. I guess you could say the whole thing will be spoiled. No need to apologize today, Billy.
I appreciate that reprieve. And a quick warning, due to the fact that we will be discussing in a rapid fire, hopefully, approach the entirety of the amazing book, Gardens of the Moon, today's episode will maybe contain copious amounts of blood, death, destruction, and loads of graphic violence. So it's probably not recommended for children.
Our show is listener supported. If you would like to support us, we would really appreciate it. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we are posting ad-free episodes on Patreon.
Also, we would really like to hear from you, so send any comments or feedback to contact@horsefrogproductions.com.
All right, let's get into the recap here.
Yes.
We are going to approach this chapter by chapter. We generally do stand-up moments at the end of each chapter, but we're going to distill that list down even further today.
Yes.
We'll have a little bit of a final recap at the end. So that's kind of the plan for this episode. In the prologue, I like how the book begins with Perrin saying he wanted to be a soldier, and it ends with him acknowledging that he has become one.
Oh, that was a really profound thing when that hit both of us, I think, when we were talking about that. And it was just like, wow, that just really, I didn't realize how much the front and the book and the end just really tied so nicely together. I mean, he has good,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his endings are fantastic, but I just never had noticed it tying to the beginning, kind of deal like that.
And Whiskey Jack, upon hearing that Perrin wanted to be a soldier in the prologue, he said, "Only if you fail at all else, son. Taking up the sword is the last act of a desperate man. Mark my words and find yourself a more worthy dream." Knowing what we know now of Whiskey Jack, you can see how this really does a good job of conveying his personality so early in the book.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's quite a profoundly deep introduction to that character.
And that's before the bad stuff has really happened to the bridge burners.
Yes.
They had just gotten back from, I say that, the bad stuff we know about.
Right. What's funny, now that you mention that, forward thinking, it's just like they just apparently have and will all, just bounce from one horrific scenario to another horrific scenario to yet another horrific scenario.
Right. Whiskey Jack also gave Perrin another warning in the prologue. He said, "Every decision you make can change the world. The best life is the one gods don't notice. You want to live free, boy, live quietly." You brought that up. I want to say it was chapter 23 or 24, where I think it was Cotillion. Was it Cotillion that told Perrin, keep a low profile?
Oh, yeah.
If you don't want to get noticed?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, when he got taken into the realm of shadow, when
Yeah.
Perrin was abducted for the second time in 5 minutes to another realm.
Yeah, that's his whole story. I did not realize until you lay it out like this. It's like that poor fella just
Yeah.
He
got taken for a ride at the end.
There was a line from Blackadder. It's like, as private parts to the gods are we, play with them at their whim. It's like, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's a Melchett line. Sorry.
All right. Moving on to chapter 1. Now that we've finished the book and we know what the hounds are capable of and what exactly they are, visualizing the massacre along the coast in Itko Khan takes on a whole new level.
Oh,
we initially were only given the aftermath, right?
Oh, yeah.
We heard a little bit of screaming, and then we get to see Perrin and Lorne going through. But these mule-sized beasts just running through 1,000 soldiers or whatever it was over,
over a big chunk of
a
land.
league and a half. Yeah, crazy.
It's pretty rough, and they're just they would have just been tossing these people. It would have been like kittens playing with toys, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Real hideous.
First digression of the night.
Mm-hmm.
My wife showed me a picture of this cat. You know how on a stationary exercise bike the handlebars kind of go horizontally. There's like a screen in the middle.
Yeah.
And then the hand. Okay. There was a cat that was laying on the screen, but then its neck was on the bar on the side. So like its leg was hanging down. She said, "Look at this cat." And I said, "That looks just like a cheetah or a jaguar sleeping in a tree." You know, they're the same thing.
Right. Oh yeah, dude.
It's funny.
I always wig out on cats, man. They always trip me out because I always see the big boys in them. You know, it's like they have they do the same attitude and everything.
Yes.
It trips me out. And I really like Perrin's intro into the adjunct. You know, straight shooter, just right out of the gate, and you know, you got to admire that.
Yeah, he was different in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Ambitious, trying to show everybody that he should be there. He should be able to do more, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
He gets taken into that world rather quickly.
Yes, he does. You know, it's like it's kind of fun to revisit it back here. I realize how much of a kid he was at the beginning of this. You know, it's you know, it's the Luke Skywalker journey, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Our first introduction to a Warren was when Perrin and Topper traveled through the Imperial Warren. I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
Particularly the visuals that were painted. And then while they were in there, Topper's acting all tough. Then they see signs that something had been there recently. Somebody got dragged off the trail they're following, gets a little nervous.
Yeah.
And then when they left, the exit where Perrin had to urge his horse onward through the gate, and then he ends up in Lassine's throne room on his horse, surrounded by the guards.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
There was a wild hoof thrown at Topper. He had to dodge. That was great. That scene was lovely.
I think we've both had our laugh about that. And I always want to know, it's especially where Topper gets wigged out by what's, you know, he gets nervous by something having been drug off and seeing something. You're like, oh man, there's something lives here, man. It's worse than the trash. Second Star Wars reference. It's worse than the trash compactor monster, sure.
That scene in the throne room, that was one of our first introductions to Erikson's humor.
Yes.
Which I really appreciate. I love the way he writes that kind of stuff.
It's very natural. He just has such a natural way with things. I found nothing forced.
Now, for veterans of the series, Perrin's return home in Chapter 1 and the conversation with Tavora will have additional significance over first-time readers because they don't know who Tavora is. Seeing her and Gamut introduced this early in the series displays how much forethought was given to the whole story.
You know, I'm just so excited having finished this book to just progress forward. And it's like, I feel like we've just started, man. We have just started.
Yeah.
It's like book 1 of 10. It's like, wow, we're 1/10 kind of.
We're 5% of the way through, maybe if we're lucky. Yeah.
I'm like you. I do enjoy finding Perrin returning home and seeing how things have changed and the tension between him and Tavora. And I love how and I'm like you, seeing them met so soon. It's like, wow. I mean, on these revisits, I'm always, you know, thrown for like, wow, that's right. They're here this quick. I mean, they're not here. I mean, you don't have them as your big players or anything, but they're introduced to you in a really quick way. That's kind of cool. I'm like you. The forethought just blows me away.
The conversation between Topper and Perrin was also enjoyable in this chapter. Perrin was getting at him, trying to get under his skin and doing a good job of it.
It's every chance Perrin gets with Topper. It seems he's got to get under him. He's got to get up under him somehow. I don't think we cover it necessarily, but it's when they're traveling later on. It's like, good Lord, man, is it got to be green every time or something like that?
Yeah, later in the book. Yeah, that's on the boat, I think. All right, moving on to Chapter 2. Our introduction to Dujek when he comes into the tent with shaving cream in his beard, and Kallet casually throws him the handkerchief, and Dujek exclaims, "Damn the barber!" What an introduction to that guy. It's great.
I know. You and I have talked about that numerous times. Even years before we've talked about doing this podcast, we've laughed about that interaction multiple times. It is a laugh out loud thing.
Right. And that same meeting is our introduction to all of the mages in the second. And Tayshrin is also introduced.
Yes.
They have the briefing prior to the Battle of Pale. A little bit of information is drip fed there.
Yeah. And I really like Harlock's contemptuous treatment of Tayshrin.
Yeah.
in the tent. That's about the only time I like Hairlock is in that tent right there.
He also spits on the ground. That's our first
Yes.
Seven Cities spit, I believe.
I think so.
The Battle of Pale and the aftermath. I mean, this is kind of the highlight of the chapter.
You know, this is first of many indelible images that are seared into my imagination from this magnificent book. Whenever I've tried to tell people about it, I say, look, man, it just, first 3 chapters, you have like this massive battle, and then we got the Hairlock stuff that we're going to talk about here in a second. And it's like that. It's like, and I said, that's just like the beginning. That's not even to the good stuff yet.
Right.
I mean, and it is the great stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's great stuff, but it's like, it just gets it. I can't believe how fanboys. What do you want? What do you want?
It was good to read through it this time a little bit more slowly to get a better picture of what was going on, because even though this is the 4th time I'm reading through it, it's always been a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it is. It's there are moments where you're just like, well, I'm just going to limp through this. Just going to limp through this section here, you know.
In terms of the aftermath, our introduction to Quickband and Kalam through the soul shifting ritual that happened with Hairlock. That's pretty interesting there.
Oh yeah, that's still kind of creepy. And yeah, like I said, already in one of those indelible images still.
That's where Clicky Feet starts to come in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really unsettling.
That marionette.
I love that. Marionette version of him. I'm like you. This has to be done into a movie. This has to be done, not movie. This needs to be done into, I don't know. It needs to be not Netflix, because I don't like the way Netflix, I love Netflix, but they have a way they pace things.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be Amazon. I think Amazon to me has some of the best pacing. They have the way they do things. I like the way they do their show formats. I think more than anybody else right now. Now this is I have a limited perception, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched a whole lot of Hulu original. I haven't watched I've seen a lot of Netflix original stuff, and I've seen a lot of Amazon original stuff. And other than the network streamers, that make their own new stuff, that's still commercial television with the F word involved.
After what they did with Lord of the Rings, I would be worried.
Oh, I forgot about Lord of the Rings. I never finished that one. I didn't hate on it. I didn't hate it. I got about halfway through and it's like, am I going to finish this? I got married right around that time. I was busier, I'm busier. So
yeah, Terminal List was really good. I enjoyed that. The Reacher show, really enjoyed that. They put out some good stuff.
I need to watch that. I like Man in the High Castle, but I didn't see the whole thing. I love Patriot, but I didn't see the whole thing again. It was so grueling getting through season 1 of Patriot, dude. It's like I just couldn't bear to. I don't think I could stomach season 2. Mm-hmm. They did horrible things to in season 1. It's oh my word.
All right, chapter 3. Watching Perrin's progression as he takes on his new role is enjoyable. The interaction with the Claw agent waiting at the dock in Genebaris is an example. That's where Perrin was sitting there for an hour and the guy was watching him. And then the guy finally decides to walk up to him and Perrin says, "Took your time about it, didn't you? You knew he was watching him the whole time."
Took your time about it. Yeah. This is what, and this is on this read through, taking the time like we talked about, this has made me love Perrin so much more. Just a great new fondness for him and really enjoyed this guy.
Yeah, and he wins that guy over in the end.
He wins he's won more people over than I remember. It's like he come across kind of not liking it, but then you're kind of like, you know what? I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, then Perrin gets to Pale and meets Talk, where they hit it off.
Oh yeah, and I love Talk. Such a stand-up guy there.
Perrin goes into Pale and he meets Picker. That was a funny scene where Picker is sitting there, not even talking to him, really, just kind of chill. Yeah. Then Perrin goes to the tavern and Hedge, Trots are there, Mallet, and they're playing cards. And then shortly thereafter, he leaves and gets shanked about 10 minutes after he gets to Pale.
Right? And I completely forgot about a couple of the other people that we were introduced there. Other than we see Trots and Hedge, and we see Mallet, but Picker and Antsy aren't in this book other than here.
Right.
And so it's like I completely forget about them, but they are, Picker and Antsy become kind of major, are big enough players for later on. I love how a lot of these people get their chance. Mm-hmm. There's some of these people's stories get told. It's fantastic.
Right. We've met about half of the bridge burners that we get to, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of him getting shanked 10 minutes after he gets there, the irony of that.
Yes.
After all we've been through, you're like,
Oh.
this character gets killed this fast.
It is pretty funny. You know, if you look at it like that, it kind of makes a really darkly comedic end to a chapter. It's almost like a Scorsese movie. Have you ever seen After Hours?
No.
I think that's the only comedy that I know of Martin Scorsese making.
Okay.
Do you have Max? This is the HBO Max thing that's now Max. No. Okay. I think it was there for a while, but the idea is that this guy goes on a date with a woman. It's Rosanna Arquette, which is the girl with all the stuff in her face in Pulp Fiction, remind me.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes on a date with her, and she's really, really weird. So he leaves. And bad stuff continues to happen to this man all night. And he ends up having to come back to her because he needs some help to get back because he lives in New York City, the city. And so he has to get some money or something. So he goes to see her, and she's killed herself.
Oh.
And so there's a series of robberies that have gone on. So through this whole thing, he's mistaken as a robber and a killer and other things. We're not really quite sure. And this is an 80s movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say the punchline. Okay. I'm sorry. If you haven't seen this movie by now, I'm sorry. This is 45 years later, then it's on you. But after the nightmarish evening he goes through, he falls out of a car right in front of his work and gets up and walks into work. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's when it's funny. It's not funny until then. Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh my word. So
it's just like a sequence of bad events, one after another.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of like how I feel about Perrin getting shanked. It's very much like after all this build up, it's like, oh, I got to go to work. And this is the beginning of getting good to work. He gets shanked though. After all of that, then he gets shanked though. So,
well, fortunately, when we go to chapter 4, we find out that he's died, but he's still in the story.
Yes.
And we're taken to Hood's Gate. And what a haunting image, and one fitting of the entrance to the realm of death, with all those people making up the archway and they're moaning and stained with peat.
It's nasty.
Yeah.
That's because somebody was really fond of burying their victims in peat, wasn't it? That's mentioned by the gods there, I think, about the colored by peat. But it's very haunting. None of the decorations are alive, or should I say just aware, moving around in the realm of the undead, or death, I guess. They're dead, but that's just troubling. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a piece of the furniture unless that's the top of it.
It's here that we get Perrin's first signs of having enough when it comes to dealing with gods, because this is where he gets a little sassy.
Oh, yes. Very early, too. It's like, this is only chapter 4. It's like, and he's very impatient and lippy, I think, with almost all deities and demigods. Sorry, ascendants. Right. That's a little D&D shout out there. Did you ever have that good book, The Deities and Demigods book?
I did not.
Oh, I used to have one that had the Cthulhu mythos in there.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
Then this chapter had that scene on the roof in Pale where Dujek gets on the Fiddler about having his sword in the puddle. And that's a contender for my favorite scene in the book.
There's two. There's this one, and there's one other one we'll cover here later on. But I know this ranks up there, and especially for our intro. I know we meet Fid in the prologue, but that doesn't count as much as this. Mm-hmm. This is truly I think our first real introduction to Fid. Just take the sword off, hates the sword, takes it, throws it in the puddle.
Then gets caught by the highest ranking member of the military in this.
Yes.
And he knows about his history, and he's like,
"Yes,
it's not the first time."
And when you put it like that, it's even funnier. It's not like you're meeting with like a general. It's like you're meeting the high command on the continent.
Yes,
it's the guy that comes and finds you with your sword in a puddle.
And it's not the first time that it's happened.
Right. And he's laughing about it. He laughs about it too. That's what's so fantastic about it.
And then later on, when Kalam comes up on Hedge and Fiddler, this is late in the book. This is right when they're about to see that Ghislaine demon. He's got that sword in Kalam's face, and it's all rusty. He obviously doesn't take good care of it.
He mentions not wanting to get an infection. Yes. Basically, he would die from an infection. That would be the only kind of wound he could suffer from that sword is an infection. It's fantastic stuff, man.
Definitely. All right, moving on to chapter 5. This is where we switch to the Darujistan crew for the first time. And we begin with Kruppa's dream. He's walking. He comes across that figure hanging from a tree wrapped in a burlap sack that we later find out is his wrapped and hanging humility.
Yeah.
And knowing him as we do now, this is a good job of setting up his character, because he doesn't have much humility, does he?
No. Well, that's what's so funny is like it seems like he has zero humility. But as things are revealed through the book, overall, I guess Kruppa could be considered most magnanimous.
That was a good one. Nice. This is also the chapter that we get the rooftop chase with Crocus and the Tist Andi assassin mages.
Yes.
Does a really good job of giving you that Prince of Persia vibe, the Arabian Nights type feel to the city, and really frames the picture of Darujhistan very well.
I agree. And it's such a great introduction to not just Crocus or not just the Tist Andi, which we don't really get much of a scene here, but just Darujhistan in and of itself. And like you said, I think that's when I really fell in love with Darujhistan. It's very much Prince of Persia vibes. Every time I go to Darujhistan, I expect to hear some of that stuff from that trilogy of great video games there. I expect to hear some of that music every time we flash back to Darujhistan. It's like...
yeah, there's some good songs on that soundtrack.
Just awesome stuff. Great stuff.
Moving on to chapter 6. This is where Crone visits Baruch. Turban Orr comes to visit. She turns herself into a dog, and Orr pats her on the head. And Crone, knowing her now, would not take that lightly, but she kept it together.
No, she's some kind of elder thing. I'm not still quite sure on what, but I know what, but I'm not still even sure on what. But I do love that she sits there and takes that. Mm-hmm. This is this is a chapter we get Lim's assassination, though, right?
It is
in the intro to Rallic. So that's kind of a big chunk of mine. I really love about this. I think this is where I really fall in love with the assassins, because as much as I love Kalam as an overall all-time great assassin, we don't see him do much of that kind of wet work here.
Right.
We know he's known for it, but this book we see Rallic actually do more of that kind of thing than Kalam, strangely enough.
Right. Kalam just gets into this big battle. It's not the assassination.
Yes. He's a soldier. He's more he's more soldier than assassin. It appears. As far as we can see in this book. Later on, it gets a little ugly, but but here it's like I think the first guy that I meet as an assassin to me is Rallic, so I just love him.
Right.
And so but I love almost, like we've talked about multiple times, just love a lot of them in this book. There's so many good ones.
Moving on to chapter 7, getting the backstory behind Circle Breaker's motivations, why he's doing what he does, is really nice.
Mm-hmm. It is, and I just really like that he's so dedicated to Darujhistan and is willing to lay his life on the line for it. It's quite a noble thing. Very patriotic.
This was also the chapter where Kruppa went to visit Baruch and was whining incessantly until Baruch finally caves and gives him wine. He was complaining about his throat being parched and it being hot outside.
Yes. The guy's wringing out buckets of sweat out of that handkerchief, Is that one of those great illusions? He probably wrings out about 3 gallons of sweat out of that thing as he's mopping his forehead. Oh, it's so hot. It's just so hot.
Some of my my kids probably read that chapter and learned this tactic from him.
Well, the thing I've seen, I've heard that you rarely have to teach the kids the word mind. So I think they kind of learned that from pretty much quick on their own.
I'm more referring to the persistence. There are some of them that will not take no for an answer. They just won't do it.
The dripping water persistence.
Yes.
And you've got it times 4, which is
It's not all of them. It's just a couple of them.
Usually.
There's 2 of them specifically that fall within this camp.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. Okay. I take it it's not Rallic and Murillo.
No.
Sorry, because that's part of what I do like about this chapter is this is where they come up with kind of their plan. They see something noble here and the impossible redemptive plan for their friend.
Is that when they go to Hinter's Tower?
Yes, this is the Hinter's Tower area. So I love that kind of when they come up with the notion of the plan. It's such an important part that's not talked about very much.
The plan?
The plan. I say that. It's kind of hinted at around the edges, and we discover the plan is known by more than Well, we'll talk about
We're
that later.
drip ed the
Maybe not.
plan over time.
Yes, that's true. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Moving on to chapter 8, Quick Ben visits the realm of chaos and summons Hairlock. They stood atop the spar of the ND, which was about halfway to the bottom of the realm of chaos. The description of the realm painted quite the picture. These swirling yellow clouds that were below them and just really sickly looking. It's interesting.
Yeah. It sounded like almost like there was like the fact that there was this spar of land or whatever, or rock or whatever. It's like one of the only physical things you can hang your hat on.
That they could see, sure.
Yeah. Everything else is so obscured by the clouds or the chaos.
And that icing on the cake with that scene was when Quick Ben kicked Hairlock off the edge of the spar. And he just goes flying satisfying. Off into those clouds.
It is quite satisfying. Oh, I love it.
This is also the chapter where we get to see Whiskey Jack getting the bridge burners in trouble for loading up their boat so far from the shore and trying to get Trots to pull it by himself. And the punishment was for Trots to get in and everybody else to pull it and without unloading it.
Yes.
The hijinks were hilarious. Fiddler knew they were in trouble the second Whiskey Jack walked down there.
Oh, yeah. And I can just see Trots just sitting himself up like he's in some palanquin. So he's just sitting up in there as they towed him to the shore. As they get ready to tow him to the shore. But I do love that. I think this is one of the really great, well, we're starting to really get a glimpse into how these guys just by living it like they do, try to find humor and try and find by pranking each other. But I do love how it backfires on them.
Yeah, it's great. Moving on to chapter 9. This is where Talk is trying to find the adjunct. He ends up rescuing her from the Bargast ambush. And this is also the same battle where Tool explosively comes out from the ground, grabs that guy's ankle, and basically skewers him.
Impales him
with his sword. Yeah. What an introduction to Tool.
Yeah. That's a really gnarly introduction to that fella. And agreed, I love this intro to him. I've always loved Tool. And Talk also is a fantastic guy. And the way he comes riding in and knowing that this fella's got one eye and he took out the two at that distance, because that's the big thing. He takes out these two other Bargast in this ambush from quite a distance, apparently. I would assume it's considered the most possible distance you can shoot with a bow. He does it. He does it one-eyed.
While riding a horse.
One shot each. Yeah, while riding a horse. And complains to himself about being bad about it. And he's like, what are you talking about? This guy's like, you're fantastic.
Yeah. And that same battle, Lorne displayed her martial prowess as well, which was really cool to see.
Yeah. She is quite a great fighter. And I tend to overlook later on in the book how great a fighter is because of everything else that is weighing upon her and what's happening to her. This side of her is not presented.
Well, we see it a little bit when she comes upon Call and the gang that's around the Jaghut Tyrant's tomb, right?
That's really close to Cool in the gang. Nice.
Call in the gang, cool, nice.
Call in the gang.
Pure accident.
Nice. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Going back to Tool appearing, this is also our introduction to what exactly a Talan IMAS is.
This is true.
It's the first time we see one described, and we'll get a little bit of the capabilities.
Yeah, and we're always just horrified by the capabilities of one.
Right.
And we're told that there's hordes of these guys out there. It's like, well, that's not scary at all, is it?
Right, and they're coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, they're coming back. They've been gone for a while. A long while.
They get into Pale. They have a dinner where Dujek is there. Tattersail ends up going to this dinner. And when Talk goes in, he's very self-conscious about his scarring on his face. And Dujek has a real bro moment where he says something and holds up the stump of his arm, rubbing it to kind of make Talk feel at ease and not be ashamed of himself for the injury that he took in battle.
Yeah. And it's beautiful the way Dujek is able to, he seems to make anyone he wants feel comfortable. Everyone, he talks to common folks and high ups alike, pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks to them the same way. It seems
we get a little bit in the last chapter of the book where he's getting a little testy because
Yeah.
He really slams his fist
Yeah.
on the table because
Yeah.
Whiskey Jack's not listening to him.
Yeah. Yeah. That is.
That's great.
Yeah, it is funny.
This is also the chapter where Lauren is riding her horse and Tool just appears beside her and she gets onto him. So he disappears and then appears 300 feet in front of her. And while she's slowly plodding towards him, he waits. It's like the malicious compliance.
Yes. I like that term. I've never heard that. The malicious compliance. What's nicely stated, sir.
No, I didn't get that idea myself.
That's,
I think there's a subreddit called Malicious Compliance or something, where people are talking about their boss giving them some stupid directions and they just comply. What was one I saw recently? The boss said print out the internet. So after about 10,000 pages of printing, the person stopped.
Oh my word. Oh my word. Several trees. I'm just kidding. Okay.
There's some funny stories on there sometimes. Some of it's kind of petty, but there's some really clever stuff that's enjoyable.
Yeah, and what's funny to me is like it's kind of is it a no sense of humor here, or is it just that he is maliciously complying with her?
It's probably no sense of humor. When you're 300,000 years old,
sure, he just moves on.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's got no sense of humor. He's 300,000 years old. What do you want? It's like you tell him to do something. He's like, okay, sure. I'll move over here. What? I got time. I got time. Apparently, it's like.
Moving on to chapter 10. This is where Perrin and Talk end up traveling together, and they have an instant friendship.
Yes,
that's good to see.
I love that. Very ease of friendship. Yeah.
This is also the chapter where Tattersail gets pursued by Bellerdan, and that pillar of fire appears when Tattersail attempts to escape. That is quite the image. That's one of those core memories from the book.
It is. Because it talks about it burning for hours, like
days,
day or two almost.
Yeah, it was days and they could feel it from over a league away, and it was reaching up into the clouds.
Yeah. Wow. And now, Mickey, that's one of the. I think that you and I have adopted a new phrase for us over here that we're just going to have to just get everyone on board for. This is just core memory. This is core memory of the series. You know, hey, dude, we got it. That's what CMOS stands for. Finally, we finally understand the core memory of the series. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, the fantastic image.
In this chapter, Crone goes to visit Caladan Brood in the north. She gets on his map table and starts knocking all his models over, all his minis, and he gets onto her about it. That was pretty funny.
Oh, I love that too. This is also we also have learned. I forget exactly how that something was born out of that fire.
Right. Talk and Perrin come up to the site and they see those skeletal footprints walking away, but they were not adult size; they were child size. Wait, were they child size or they were just smaller because they were just
skeletal.
Yeah, it wasn't. They weren't
they were
child
smaller
size
because they were skeletal.
Yeah,
I think they were just skeletal. Skeletal. I'm assuming feminine.
Mm-hmm. In chapter 11, the ritual of the creation of Silver Fox within Kruppa's dream takes place, and that is a very interesting scene. Kroll is there. There's a Talana MS Bonecaster there. Pran Cole. Kruppa has to go gather this skeletal being that walked away from that pillar of fire. They transfer the soul to the infant that's born. So that's quite the scene.
It's really strange and eerie, but also kind of touching. And when Kruppa goes to gather that one, because it's someone that's obviously hurt. He's like, "Follow me," he goes, "I know that you've been hurt. It's okay." So it's creepy and gnarly, and also very touching. At the same time.
Yes. In the same chapter, we had the people that are in Darujistan talking about the Malazan forces coming. Malazan forces are coming. But then this is the chapter where they realize they're already here.
They're already here.
So the timelines are synced up here. We switch to the bridge burner perspective, and Whiskey Jack's in the street observing the rest of his squad turn into crazed street workers. Trots is over there swinging his pickaxe. Rocks are flying everywhere, bombarding pedestrians in the street. They're giving them a wide berth. There was the man with all the firewood on his donkey that he just left. The stuff fell off and he just left. Hilarious scene.
They're fantastic, dude. It's just so fantastic how Whiskey Jack's, how the fellas just transform so beautifully into that. Beautiful stuff.
They were going a little bit too far, maybe. He was concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with all the rocks flying. It's like
this was the same chapter that Kruppa's little dance of thievery when he's walking through the market, pulling all these pastries and these sticky sweet buns and hiding them in the pockets in his sleeves, using sorcery for that. That was always a scene that stuck with me.
Yeah, it does. It is a core memory. It always hangs in there because it's real. It's funny. I mean, Kruppa's just he's more appreciated this read through because I'm like most Descendants. I either want to kill him or I laugh at him. You know, it's like he's a little irritating. He's a little funny. He's a little, he really kind of treads that pretty carefully.
Mm-hmm. And the chapter ends with Quick Ben going through the realm of chaos to sneak into the realm of shadow to speak with Shadow Throne.
Yeah, that's he's such an adrenaline junkie. Do you think most mages are this reckless like this, dare big, win big in this universe, or do you think most are the studious kind of, ivory towered fellas?
I think it's a mix.
I'm guessing it
based
is.
on some of the ones that we've seen.
Tayshrin strikes me as one of the studious lot.
So does Mammoth and Baruch to some degree.
Yeah. The Torrid Cabal for the most part. Yeah, they strike me as more book style. Mm-hmm. Then you got Quick Ben, who is just a different kind of animal.
Quick Ben is on his own tier when it comes to the shenanigans. I mean, his name's Quick Ben for a reason.
Yes,
he's very sneaky.
And this is, of course, one of those scenes right here, buddy. I mean,
yeah. In chapter 12, we get that scene where we see what happens when he goes into the realm of shadow. He's escorted into the castle or fortress or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. We
find out that he was previously a high priest of shadow.
I know it's such a great. I'm like you. It's a core memory. The whole trip here from Quick is just absolute. It's riotous especially when he gets away with it. It's just, I laugh giddily. I get that giddy, like, yes, he did it again. Even though I've seen him do it 4 or 5 times now, it's like, okay, man, I still get excited that he gets away.
In chapter 13, this is where we get the assassin fight on the rooftops, where Quick Ben and Kalam are working together. Quick Ben gives Kalam 2 spells. One of them was levitation, right? And the other one was, what was the other one? To see magical signatures, right?
See magical signatures, and Ben himself was invisible.
Right.
Riding over his shoulder or something like that.
The Tistandi falling from the sky.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really cool image. Yeah. Then we get that really cool scene where that demon that was summoned by Baruch, it's flying around. It's like, oh man, if this guy wasn't holding me back, I'd lay waste to this city. Then it gets a boot on the back of its skull. It's enraged, turns around. Then seconds later, it's fighting for its life. Hilarious turn of events.
It is. Again, these are so much of this with the floating assassins and stuff. It's some of my core memories, and it's so funny with the demon, because the demon we've talked about the fact that it's strong enough to have done a lot of damage in and of itself, but it's just like the boot on the back of the neck. It's like, yes, hush, just be quiet. It's like, picks him up like an angry cat, just like by the scruff of his neck,
And this is the first time we get to see Kalam actually in action, and what an animal he is, hanging off the side of the building, one-armed, grabbing one guy, pulling him off, shaking him, throwing him down. He put a knee in the guy's jaw, broke his jaw. Then another one.
He broke somebody's neck, didn't he?
Yeah, he broke somebody's neck, broke somebody else's jaw and nose. Yeah, I think he ended up fighting 3 of them.
Yeah.
He got injured, but he did really good. And it just shows you how strong he is.
Yeah.
And then they start to get overrun, and Quick Ben unleashes Pearl, which is one of the
Yes.
demons that he stole from Tayshrin. And Pearl materializes and sees Rake coming. And that was a really sad little conversation that they had there, where Pearl says, do you pity me? And Quick Ben just kind of floats down and says, yes. You know, he drops out of view. It's a really touching scene.
Yeah, kind of sad. It's not scratch. It's really sad. I always feel really bad for any victim of Dragnapur, even if they had it coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the audio book as I did this read through. And again, you know, Lister does it real like, well, okay, then it's like it knows it's like it's got no option but to take what's coming, and he knows what's coming, and it ain't pretty.
We should differentiate between these demons that are summoned. Some of them, they're not really demons, they're just denizens of a different realm.
Yeah.
The Ghislaine Lord, for example, he's obviously a bad guy, but
yeah.
Pearl, we can't really say it now. We'll find out more later about some of the same species of individual as Pearl, what they actually are. I'm not going to say right now, but it makes you feel bad for them because they're not bad individuals. They just got enslaved by some mage that had the power to do it.
They're just hanging, they're hanging out doing their business in their own world, and some dude yanks them back over here. It's like, hey, they may be pretty decent folks. They just look pretty rough because I'm assuming it's the laws of the physics of their universe.
Yeah.
That's what it takes to survive. I'm assuming it's a hostile environment they live in.
So after the battle, when they get back to the Bridgeburners base of operations, Whiskey Jack's reaction when he heard that Quick Ben had to unleash the demon, he was like, who did you encounter out there?
Right.
That was great.
There's a lot of great stuff there. A lot of great dialogue with those fellas. It's so funny.
Then we switch perspectives and we hear the Tist ND perspective of what happened. Surratt's telling Animander Rake, this person got their neck broken, the other one's dead, you know, and Rake's like, yeah, you guys can have 3 days off.
Right. Okay, you guys got a long weekend, but I want you back here Tuesday at 8. You know, it's like 8. And it's like, but Rake has this grudging admiration for Kalam there.
Yes.
Dude, it's like what? One guy did this to 3 of you guys? It's like, what? I think he's kind of blown away by that.
Then after that, Rake goes to visit Baruch, and he's got that demon that they hit on the back of the head with their foot.
Oh yeah.
He's got it scruffed and he throws it at Baruch's feet. And this demon that was, I'm gonna destroy this city if I could. Now it's like runs behind Baruch like a dog that got whooped or something, you know.
So funny. Yeah, exactly, because that's all it was. It was like it's really funny. Mm-hmm. I love that.
We get that drip feed of information on Dragnapur, so we get some more of that in this chapter, building the story around it and what it's capable of doing.
Yeah, it's a disgusting weapon. I'm sorry, I'm going to go. Is it the ultimate D&D weapon?
In terms of it being the ultimate weapon, it takes such a toll on the person that's holding it. I don't know if you would call it, because it's more of a burden than a benefit.
I've noticed. I mean, all I ever knew of was, I've told you about the one Stormbringer. Stormbringer had cousins. There was a race of these sword type demons. I'm sorry. Did you ever get to how much Mandalorian did you?
I haven't seen any of season 3 yet.
Okay, but did you see any of the dark saber stuff?
And that was season 2, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
Did you ever see how he couldn't hardly pick it up? It's like he can't hardly wield it for some reason. I don't know if it's a lack of force sensitivity or whatever. I got no reason. I got no why. But it's like someone with a stronger will. It's kind of like, that's what I'm reminded of with Dragon.
I think that wasn't in season 2. I think that's season 3.
No, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. That may actually be in Boba Fett.
Okay.
Because Boba Fett, you need to watch that. Why you have to watch that is it's basically Mandalorian 2.5.
Okay.
For the most part. It is, it isn't. I mean, you get a lot. At first, it's all Boba, and then it moves into a lot of Mandalorian territory.
I think we just signed up for Disney Plus again this week.
Okay. Righteous. Give that a shot.
Watch the second Avatar.
I've never seen the first.
Oh, well, the second one's good, actually.
Okay.
I thought it was better than the first one.
Oh, okay.
It's a more unique story, not just a rehash of Dances with Wolves in space.
Right.
So.
Right.
All right.
My goodness.
Yeah, I recommend it. It's good.
Okay. Well, you know, what's funny is like I've tried a bunch of the Marvel stuff on Disney lately, and I just basically, as far as I'm concerned, after the Spider-Man movies, I've had a hard time getting back into their stuff. I had a real hard time getting back into the new Thor or the new Doctor Strange. I haven't done those three.
That new Doctor Strange was the Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah, I know it. I know
you didn't enjoy it?
First part of it seemed really cartoony to me. And I was kind of like, there was something that struck me a bit odd, and I was just kind of like, I just don't want it right now. It's like, I just want to have good memories.
Okay.
Kind of deal. It's like, I just don't know if have we jumped the shark?
We'll see. See if they can salvage it.
We'll see.
We'll see when we get Secret Wars with Nick Fury.
That's true. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I am too. That part of the MCU has always been the part that I'm most interested in. The grounded Captain America side of things that's more, air quotes, realistic.
Right. Well, with the Secret War, you have to imagine my first recollection when you say Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars is not a really good comic, but it's what got Spider-Man the black suit.
Is Secret Invasion, not Secret Wars, right? Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. This is going to be a scroll. That's going to be a scroll thing. Where these guys are going to be.
Yes.
Will they introduce the Fantastic Four with this?
I don't know. Maybe
because that's where in the comic books, that's where our first big scroll line came from on the human level was the Fantastic Four. When I was a kid, I've read some of those reprints. They're fantastic to this day, man. This Stan Lee Ditko and Mike Ditko stuff is amazing. Still good comics. Still good stuff.
Okay, that was quite the digression.
Sorry, that was quite the digression. Pardon us. Hey, it's the book. It's the bookend excitement, folks. It's part and parcel of what you get when you listen to the Malazan Brotherhood.
Comes with the territory, as it were.
It comes with the territory. Yeah, exactly.
In chapter 14, this is where the Darujhistan crew go out into the hills at Baruch's behest to get the coin bearer out of the city. And Kruppa, instead of getting horses, gets a bunch of donkeys. Hilarious.
Whole side trip is great. It's their road trip. It's the heartwarming road trip of the book.
Well, is it really? I guess, yeah. Crocus is complaining, and they're saying, hey, you wanted to see the world outside of Darujhistan. Well, here it is.
Well, like we say, it's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. No one loses an eye here, but someone does get hurt.
Right.
But it's all fun and games until that moment. I'll put it like that.
In chapter 15, this is where Quick Ben finally has had enough of Hairlock, and he cuts his strings, trapping him after he was being pursued by the hounds. This is right when Perrin is talking to Hairlock. Hairlock's threatening him. Then his strings get cut and he falls on the ground. And now he's begging Perrin to make a deal with him so that he'll help him out after he was just threatening him 10 seconds ago.
Yes. I'll kill you. Please help me. Please help me. Too funny.
And then the hounds ripping Hairlock apart into little splinters.
That's satisfying.
It is.
That is satisfying to me. I'm satisfied, but I know you on a personal level are very, very mollified with that. So you're very satisfied with that. So.
This is where Rake appears, and Perrin is just driven down by the pressure of Rake's arrival.
Yeah, dude, that's a sick arrival.
And then he dispatches those hounds. He warns them, then they come at him anyway and just dispatches both of them.
Yeah, and that is a sick arrival before taking them on. Just amazing.
Right.
So cinematic. Erikson does this. I see all this stuff in my head so easily. As we do these memories right here, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm just flashing on it now. It's great. It's epic.
Yeah. Then Shadow Throne shows up, and there's a little back and forth between him and Rake. It was interesting to see the way Rake spoke with him.
Yeah, as close to an equal. That was a big reveal. We talk about that to a little extent in the episode, but y'all go back and check that out, folks.
He basically tells him, hey, you need to get the rope pulled back. And that's what makes Cotillion leave Sari's body.
That is exactly what does that.
Then Perrin goes into Dragnapur, which, what a scene, right? Because we've been hearing the rattling of chains, the creaking of the wagon, and then you get to see it and how massive it is and just the despair that's in there. People are permanently walking forward, dragging this massive wagon. And then those hounds, they come and they're mauling that wagon, pulling it around with their power.
It's crazy. The image that always sticks with me is not just the fact that we get the people pulling the wagon, but there's some other ones that are being drug on the chains by the wagon.
They give up.
They've just given up and they're being drugged for how many thousands of miles, and they're still alive, but or not. They're still, I don't know, they're alive in this realm. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's being drug over mile after mile of it's crazy, dude. That's some great, disgusting, hellish imagery.
Hmm.
It's brutal, and it's not even a flaming hell. It's just trapped pulling this wagon ahead, and we haven't even got to ahead of anything yet. But
Yeah, but that's part of the
so,
problem, right? It's this, where are you going with it?
yeah.
There's no end destination. It's just a permanent task.
Why do they have to keep pulling? Can they stop and have a smoke break? I mean, I don't get it. Not that I'm advocating smoking, people. I'm sorry, I don't smoke anymore. I used to smoke cigarettes, but not anymore. It's been a long time, but I was just joking.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Anytime.
It was really cool seeing how Perrin was able to find a way to help the hounds. He put Chance into where the chains went, which we saw was an entrance to darkness.
Yes. Yeah, they're hauling around the warren.
Yeah.
I guess the opening of the warren?
It's a gate to it.
Okay. The gate to the Warren of Dark, yeah.
Which was quite the info drop this early in the book.
Yeah, it is. It's a big info drop. And I found this stuff with the hounds very touching. And I like seeing how powerful they are. The fact that they are so strong that just these two of them are going to upset this thing that I assumed could not be upset.
Mm-hmm.
And most assuredly, these two are going to.
Right.
If they're here very long.
Mm-hmm.
And Perrin helps them get out or get away. We don't know where, but they get away. So quite a great scene there.
It is. Moving into chapter 16, this is where Perrin was traveling and he was surrounded first by a veteran herd. Then the Reeve attacked him.
Right.
He was able to defend himself. More accurately, Chance defended him.
Right. I love that.
Yeah, that was a pretty good fight sequence there.
I love how that sword just jumps in there, intercepting the spearheads.
Yep. And then Silver Fox appears, and we see her as a young girl, and Perrin finds out that Tattersail is not necessarily alive, but a portion of her is still in the material plane.
Right. Yeah. I'm like you. I enjoyed that, and I know I may have given it a little short shrift when we passed this way. I meant nothing by that. It is nice. It's nice to see it, and it gives you something to look forward to.
For me, the stuff that I'm interested in largely is more the military, the bridge burner stuff, the soldier stuff. This relationship didn't particularly interest me, but it is an important character, an important relationship to that character. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Later in that chapter, Perrin meets Cull, and I love this scene because they bond immediately.
Yeah.
Through both of them just laying it all out there. There's no subterfuge there.
There's not.
Perrin is able to wake Cull up from his stupor.
Yeah. I really like seeing that, and it's cool to see. But this is twice when you look at it like this, that Perrin apparently just is able to bond quickly. I mean, look at it. The Claw agent, Cull. I mean, these guys really quickly come to like him. They look at him and they gauge him on how he looks first, like some wealthy dude, because he's probably clean cut and whatnot. But for the most part, it's like he's kind of immediately makes himself liked by folks.
Well, specific people seem to like him immediately.
Yeah. There's something very real about him to a lot of folks.
Moving into chapter 17, we get to see Rallick prepping to take out Ocelot and rubbing the Odotarl into his skin.
I love the commitment from Rallick. And I also like it. Also, that we get the big thing on Circle Breaker here and his love for Darujistan, and I also love what that inspires in him for some reason. I like how the city is. Darujistan is a favorite, not the favorite place, but it's a place I like in fantasy. It's one of the places I'd like to see.
Yes, I was thinking about it the other day. With AI image generation, you could probably come up with some pretty cool renditions of Darujistan.
I bet you could.
I was thinking of messing around with that and maybe posting some on the website.
There you go. Well, that's actually probably I've seen some of that stuff and I'm like, wow, that's pretty crazy. There you go.
I mean, we got a backlog of things that need to be added to the website.
I know it. Oh my!
I owe people a dictionary of our terms that we use.
You know what's funny? I actually broke out the GCE on my missus the other day. I was like, no, I said, I think it's GCE.
That's the Glenn Close effect.
Yes, I hadn't broke that out in a long time. I'm like, oh, sorry. It was one of those things. We were watching this show, and I said, I think that's just the GCE going.
For those of you that may be unfamiliar, Billy, do you want to explain GCE since you're the one that coined it? Yeah, please.
There was I've watched in the movie Fatal Attraction, Glenn Close gives such a horrific performance. I mean, not horrific, but she does such a good job of being believable as a crazy woman that for years afterward, I could not disassociate my view of her from that role. And so, therefore, it was hard. I really had a hard time liking Glenn Close in anything because she did such a great job of being so unhinged in that movie that I mistake that for her. That's just a role she's playing, and she does it so well, and the movie's so believable. I mean, dude, come on, that's it. People do that. That happens.
Yes.
That kind of stuff actually happens. So it's like it's not unbelievable to see that. So she gets to me so much on that it is she earned the Glenn Close effect, and we have talked about that extensively in our when we did our coverage of The Boys, because it has more to do with that than anything else, because it's a television video thing. When you're talking about the books, it doesn't tend to bleed into it unless we're talking about television or movies, which does come into the conversation because we do bring it up. But it's been months. But there it is, Glenn Close effect.
Yes, thanks.
My pleasure.
All right, going into chapter 18, Fiddler giving his speech to Whiskey Jack about how losing bridge burners has been painful for all of them, not just Whiskey Jack.
Yeah.
And then Whiskey Jack finally admitting to himself that they are all his friends. I could see how that could be a burden lifting off of his shoulders, because if he's fighting something that's in his nature, it just weighs you down.
Yeah.
Unnecessarily.
It's very heartwarming and sincere too. And and I love that Fiddler, who is probably one of my all-time favorite humans in the series, but he's not a prime player here. He's a sporting cast guy, and he just like lays out this really great speech, about, hey man, we all lost friends and we're your friends too. It is really quite touching.
Yeah, I love that speech from him.
Very much.
We also get the fight between Rallick and Ocelot, which is a difficult scene to get through, though it is quick.
Yes.
That's one of those very brutal fights.
Yeah, great, albeit short fight. Yes.
Yeah. Anytime someone gets stabbed through the forehead with a knife, that's pretty rough.
That's pretty bad. It's like what you need there is a big old Band-Aid. No, there's not much coming back from a dagger in the forehead.
Right.
And I think this is also the chapter where we see the bone dagger conference call thingy. I think it's what you were wanting. We were trying to figure out the other day what it was. It's just that. That's all I had. That's what I dubbed it.
No, you had a really clever name for it. I need to go back and listen to the episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I copied that from the notes of the.
Yeah, but you had something else that you called it.
Okay. Oh my word. I'm sorry. I'll have to go back on chapter.
It's okay. It was something very clever. I seem to remember. I don't know. Maybe I'm inventing things in my head. Okay. All right, moving on to chapter 19.
Oh, yeah. It's Surratt getting surprised. The start of an alarmingly bad trend for this character.
Which surprise was this one in 19?
Is this the second one? Or is this the first real surprise? Is this where she jumps out the window?
This is the one above Phoenix Inn.
Yes, where the kids are going to come out of the window. The kids, Crocus and Absalar / Sorry, are going to leave. And she's basically hanging out the window, invisible, going to jump on and kill him. And then she hits up against some of the CG, some of the Crimson Guard, apparently.
Cowl, specifically.
Cowl, wow.
Okay. Right, the mage.
Yeah, that's a bad feller.
And this is the chapter where Kruppa is sitting and pleading with an unresponsive Baruch in his study. He's been here all day. He's famished,
Fantastic
I
stuff,
love that.
Dude. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's the calm before the storm kind of deal,
Yes.
It's like the slight little fun before it gets real bad.
And then in chapter 20, the Crimson Guard again get the best of Surratt in Krull's belfry. This is where...
I'm sorry, I was going to say they rung her belfry.
She gets snuck up on from behind when she had 10 wards in place to defend herself, and Cowl gets a knife to her throat, and this really upset her.
Yeah, that's that would.
Yeah.
That would be very upsetting because she's really good. But, man, the Crimson Guard, dude.
Very impressive. Their skill sets.
Yes, they are very impressive a lot.
Mm-hmm.
With the Crimson Guard, I think a lot of times I always get the impression they move too fast to be seen. I get that with the Tis-Dan-Dee sometimes.
Possibly, yeah. Crocus was having trouble following the fight between, it was Blues and Lorne later in the book. He said the scimitars were moving so fast that he could barely see.
That's right.
This chapter is where Rayst exits his barrow and battles with the 5 dragons.
Yes. Core memories, dude.
Yeah.
Core memories there.
Mm-hmm. And when he reached into the earth and made Burn hurt
Yes.
rupturing. Some mountains appeared, and then lava started spewing. That was an image that particularly stuck with me.
Yes.
In that scene where he comes out.
Yeah, you know what's so crazy about that? Well, that's just hard that you can't sit here and describe it a whole lot. You have to read it. It's like, and we've already done that, folks. Check out check about chapter 20 episode recovery. You'll see it. We talk about it very detailed.
Right. And then during the battle with the dragons, the descriptions of what Amtos Falak was doing to those dragons, where when it went up into their leg and it was boiling their blood, is really nasty stuff.
Wasn't it like popping some bones here and there or something like that? You're like, oh. I don't know if it popped bones, but it sounded like it ruptured some things, though.
Yes. And then moving into chapter 21, Kruppa at Lady Simtal's fate goes up. He dives and dodges through the crowd to get to Rake and Baruch when they arrive. And then he introduces himself and sprays them with crumbs from the food that's in his mouth.
Only Kruppa could get away with that, too.
Yeah. And then once he introduces himself, he smashes the pastry into his mouth.
Yeah. He's like, oh, pardon. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Then we get that wonderful scene where Rallick is really egging on Turban Orr.
Yes.
Just the stuff that he came up with, insulting his nose, talking about him, just prattling on,
empty wind, all that kind of stuff. This is one of my. Now, we talked about favorite moments. Sword in the pool of water is one, and this is the other one for me.
Really? Okay.
This is one of the big ones for me, just because of the fact that this is where this is a very crucial part of a very major storyline here. It doesn't involve the Malazans. It involves our Phoenix crew that we like, that we've gone to like, and to watch Rallick egg this guy on, and then to end that fellow like he does is quite satisfying. I was very satisfied.
That duel is wonderful. He's got his hands in his cloak, and Turban Orr immediately attacks, and just Rallick dispatches him like it's nothing.
Nothing, dude. Just nothing.
And that's an experienced duelist too.
A very experienced duelist. Everyone's terrified of this boy. He loves to fight.
Yes.
He loves to fight. I'm sorry. He loved to fight.
Right.
And then also, I also like Whiskey Jack recognizing Rake and the bridge burners, just kind of rolling with it, dude. It's like just roll with it. It's like and they do. What a crew! What a bunch of guys, man.
Consummate professionals.
Pros. Total pros. Total pros. Love it.
As Circle Breaker is leaving the Fate, he sees the eel sleeping at the table, and he just leaves him there, doesn't expose him. I like that.
I do too. It's kind of cool because we remember how first off, I love how he's got Circle Breaker set up, but I like how at this exact moment we came to realize in the next chapter that, remember, there's some stuff that goes on inside of his head again, and this is the eel is dreaming. He's dreaming a big battle, so that while he's containing forces in his dream. Epic.
Moving into chapter 22, we get to read about the continued battle between Raced and the dragons.
Oh yeah.
As they approach Darujistan.
That's some great imagery.
Some great imagery there.
Great imagery.
Like the storm coming in from the east.
Yeah. Again, I cannot say this needs to be made into the greatest series ever. I'm sorry. I never really watched Game of Thrones. I never read Game of Thrones.
It started out okay, but the problem with Game of Thrones is the characters aren't that likable,
right?
For the most part. There's so many likable characters in this series. There's so many characters to fall in love with.
There's likable villains to fall in love with. There's lots of rascals. We have lots of everybody to fall in love with. And there's lots of people to hate too, but you fall into love with a lot of folks, man.
Another thing I appreciated in this chapter, Vorkin's appearance.
Yes.
And how Rallick interacts with her.
We've been waiting for her the whole book, or not the whole book. Ever since we've heard about Vorkin, I've always wanted. It's like Vorkin's always whispered about. Here she is. You're like, whoa, and he's talking. It's really cool, dude. She seems like she's impressed with him. Yeah,
I love how she's talking to him, and he's just silent. And then she says, "You're a man of few words," and he's still silent.
It's better to There is a proverb in the Bible that talks about even a fool appears wise when keeping his mouth shut, something like that. So sometimes it is best to just keep your mouth shut.
Yes. This chapter, we also get to see the mammoth possessed by Race getting attacked by Quick Ben with his 7 warrens. We realized Quick Ben has access to 7 warrens.
I think if Quick Ben had been in possession of a 16-man bag along with the 7 warrens, he might have won that fight. Sorry.
I think his 6 demon bag was Pearl. What, he already threw that out.
That's true. Sorry, this is brought to you by Egg Shin's famous lineup of 6 demon bags.
Oh, how did we not see this before? Does Taishrin have a 6 demon bag?
He must have, because they stole 2 of them from him.
He's got all his.
He's missing. It's a 4 demon bag now, but it's like...
How did we not see that before, man?
I forgot. That's too
great.
funny. That's too funny.
Oh,
I love it.
The icing on the cake for me in this scene, when Daradan asks Quickben, "What is that man doing?" And Quickben looks up and sees his head peeking over or something, and he's got that arbalest there with the cusser in it, and he's screaming.
Oh my word.
It's great.
I love that too. It's like, and anytime these guys get to break this stuff out, I always get excited and scared for anybody around them, because it's going to get ugly.
Yeah. On the point of that being in a show, though, can you, dude, the comedic value of seeing that scene, if done correctly?
Who is Hedge? The question is, who is Hedge to you, like as an actor? I have a guy in mind, and it's kind of funny. He is in Game of Thrones. I did not know this guy, but he played the comedy show, an American comedy show, but he was the guy that played the king in Game of Thrones. I could see him younger, looking kind of scarred up with that face, howling and wailing.
You're talking about Robert Baratheon, the kind of overweight king a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. The original king. He actually played in an American sitcom. That's where I first knew about him. And I could see him being a Hedge, because he's always a short-haired fella anyhow. So it's got to be a guy with no hair, or hair burned away in patches. It's some hair, but burned away in patches.
Huh. I have a better picture of Fiddler in my mind. Hedge is kind of obscure. I do have the leather scorched cap on his head.
Right.
He's got dark hair for some reason, but I don't have like a real clear picture of his face somehow.
I kind of don't, but for some reason, with the guy with the kind of, for me, Hedge has a kind of a misshapen head. Not badly, but it's just kind of, and his head is kind of more exposed, like he's more shaved bald and burnt hair off kind of deal. And he seems to be have suffered from his own experimentations than Fid. Fid's face has not been impacted, or his hair, not so much. His hands are chewed up with the acid it talks about, but
yeah, which one has the pock marks on their face?
I think that's Hedge.
Is that Fiddler?
I thought that was Hedge. I think Fid has the pockmarked hands from the acids.
Okay.
But hey, if anybody listen to the show, hey, reach out to us. Contact at HorseFrogProductions.com. Let us know if we're missing on the description here.
All right, and then the final thing in this chapter, Perrin going savage on the Finnest in the eel's dream.
Yeah.
Where the hound comes out of him and he starts biting into that wooden Finnest.
Yeah. Well, remember, he has to pick splinters out of his teeth.
Yes. It's like biting Groot.
Yeah. You get that big dog from Thor Ragnarok attacking Groot. That'd be kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
You could have chewed on him for a minute. It's Cerberus. What am I talking? Is it Cerberus? It's not Cerberus. It is a hellhound of a sort, though. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's been a while since I watched that.
Yeah.
Chapter 23, we get to read about the summoning of the Ghislaine Lord by Lorne.
Yes.
This leads us to Kalam catching up to Fiddler and Hedge in the city to attempt to stop them from blowing everybody up by accident.
Yes.
We talked about the scene earlier where Kalam gets the sword in his face, the rusty sword that Fiddler's holding on to. But when Kalam asks them what's wrong, and they point up the street, and this plodding 12-foot tall demon's walking towards them. Again, comedy.
Yes.
Right?
It's all comedy, because when he grabs them, they yank Kalam off his feet straight up. Because he manages to snag them both by the collar. And they just like, I get an idea that he grabs them forward, but they run behind him and they yank him backwards. It's kind of what I see. And then he's getting up to say them. They all see it at the same time. I was like, holy crap. And they just all get up and run. If there was ever time to leave.
Yeah. Well, Kalam sticks around and realizes it's a soul taken, right? He witnesses it veering.
He watches it veer.
Yeah, he tells the other ones to leave. Yeah. Kalam's a big guy too. You figure he's probably 225 to 240 pounds, given how he's described. Muscular. For him to get pulled off his feet by these two, especially when he's running that fast. Yeah. That says a lot about how stout they are.
Yes. Yeah, they're awesome.
Because I always pictured Fiddler as slender.
Do you? I kind of, for some reason, I have Fiddler To me, Fiddler is not much different than those crazy Filari dudes that we run into later on, Stormy and.
Oh, yeah, he was always smaller. So Stormy is described as this massive.
That's true.
Almost. Okay, so speaking of Game of Thrones, the redheaded wildling guy, that's how I picture him.
Right.
This is a character you'll be introduced to soon, next week or two.
Okay.
But yeah, big redheaded guy. He's Filari.
Yeah.
But Fiddler was always not that tall and slender to me.
He's kind of small, especially when you hear him read. When you hear him read by Lister, he's always real soft spoken in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So Lister sees him similar as a smaller fellow, I think.
This chapter finishes out with us witnessing Rake veering into his dragon form finally. And that's really an epic scene because through all the readings throughout this book, they've been showing Rake as half man, half dragon.
Yes.
And so we knew he could.
Yes.
It's been alluded to, but we never saw him transform.
No. Didn't we see him land as a dragon when he attacks the hounds? Or do we see the dragon land? He just appeared?
He had appeared, yeah.
Okay.
This is the first time we see him transform.
Nice.
And then the final chapter, chapter 24, Crocus running in the streets and ending up right in the middle of the battle between Rake and the Ghislaine Lord. His reaction where he's running across the street and he stops and he starts staring at the Ghislaine Lord, hilarious.
And yes, but then he's got the fortitude to get up and go and get this guy a contract for the Cowboys. He maintains amongst the destruction. He dodges and weaves, and it's amazing. It's impressive given the magnitude of excrement that's hitting the fan right now that he can maintain his footing at all.
Yeah, he does a really good job of handling this entire thing that he's been thrown into.
Yeah,
especially right here.
This is where he really grows, isn't it? It's where he finally he steps it up. It's where game on.
I think these last two chapters, where number one, the Chalice nonsense is put behind him.
Yeah.
He witnesses Mammoth's death, but then even then he listens to Rallick and takes on this mission to go warn Baruch that Vorkin's coming.
Yes.
When he gets to Baruch's estate, he witnesses this, but he's still undeterred. So yeah, that's a lot of growth, a lot of commitment on his part, especially really, for how young he is.
Yes. What do you put him at? 16 to 17, maybe? Not quite 18?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay.
The culmination of this battle, the battle itself, we have that really cool scene with the axe with the light coming off of it, and then Dragnapur swallowing up all that light, and then ultimately, of course, Rake's going to win. When we see what happens when the demon is impaled by Dragnapur, that's the first time it's actually described how Dragnapur goes about enslaving one of its victims.
Yes.
So that was an interesting thing to read about.
That always sticks with me too as an image. Very much so. Mm-hmm. That poor fella. Right. I feel kind of bad for that dude right there, that Ghislaine Lord. Even though he's a 12-foot tall demon lord, I feel a touch of pathos for that fella.
He was just trying to earn his freedom after all.
Yeah, that's right. Just another fella just trying to get, hey man, just want to be free.
In this chapter, we also get to see Vorkin in action as she attempts to take out Baruch and Daradan.
I love that. And I also love that Crocus takes her out with that one brick. Well-timed bricks.
Of all the things.
Yes.
It's a brick crunches her in the face.
Yeah. Very mundane. Nicely done.
She ultimately ends up getting injured, runs to Rallick, and Rallick enters the Azath without any hesitation.
Yeah. And I've always enjoyed that for some reason. I guess just because Rallick thinks it felt right, so therefore it feels right to me too.
Okay. Then with the epilogue, Perrin ends up as a soldier, and this brings the book full circle.
Yes.
With the prologue, where he said he wanted to be a soldier, and he's acknowledging that he did become one.
Yeah.
And he ends up hearing Tattersail's voice in his head, or whatever Tattersail is now. He hears that voice that I'll meet a soldier.
Yeah, that's right. And it's beautifully done, beautifully wrapped up by Mr. Erikson.
Yeah, especially with the circle breaker sitting at the bow of the ship and witnessing the coin being flipped into the water.
Yeah, I love it. Great.
I do love that ending.
Just a good ending. Great book front to end, man. Great job.
In terms of final thoughts, here's the distilled list of my favorite topics throughout the book. You could say that the interactions of the bridge burners with each other, all the hijinks and the serious moments, that's my favorite stuff in this series. Yes. So I absolutely love that.
I agree. It makes it all. It brings it also in. It makes it. It's the human element to the story.
The bonds of brotherhood that they have.
Yes.
Rake in every aspect, whether it's learning about how he thinks or seeing him in action, it's always impressive.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What a character.
Oh, Rake is. We never learn. Even when we learn everything about him, we still don't learn enough about him. He's. What do you want? He's 300,000 years old. There's a lot to write about this fella.
Right. In terms of action sequences, you have the Battle of Pale, the assassin battle on the rooftops, and then the battle between the Ghislaine Lord and Rake. All of that was really enjoyable.
Oh yeah, and it's great. A lot of the things I've learned about this, for me, having not ever taken the time to slow my reading down and enjoy this more, take the time and dig through it all, has been so amazing for me and very much enjoyable. And like I say, it's been such a good learning experience on how to do this. I cannot wait to start Deadhouse Gates because I know personally that's your favorite.
It is my favorite.
So
yes.
I
cannot wait to talk about some of the stuff that goes on in that book. It is killing me not being able to talk about it.
Right on, dude. Are you going to you need to post that inscription on the website for people.
Oh yeah. Should put a picture of it up. Yeah. Yeah. And again, thank you.
Hey, dude, I was telling KP about that today. We were laughing about that, dude. I can't believe that. That's the thing. That was the impetus.
Yeah. And Billy's referring to the signed copy of Deadhouse Gates that I have, signed by Steven Erikson himself. So, yeah. So next week, we will begin our coverage of Deadhouse Gates.
Deadhouse Gates, man. I am so excited.
Yeah. We got one down. 9 to go.
Hey, I'm so excited. Yeah. Just buckle up, folks. It's just getting started.
Yes, it only gets better from here. I'll tell you what.
And this book is fantastic, and it just gets better.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.